What's up, boys? Crowan here, and I'm going to be going over some general tips to improve your DPS. So as you can see right now, I'm on my hunter. So the first tip I'm going to give you is to use an add-on. Okay, it says this add-on is called Advanced Interface Options. So this wouldn't be something I would normally recommend, but since coming back to WoW, I've realized that they've Blizzard's removed a bunch of options for you, and there's one very key thing that they've removed, which is if you go into the add-on once you've installed it, Advanced Interface Options, Combat, and you will see here we have Cast Action Keybinds on Key Down. So this is like a massive DPS increase. So however much amount of time it takes you for you to lift your finger up from a key. So let's say that's at like 0.01 millisecond, whatever. It's like 1 millisecond. I don't know. And you used to take that and then take every time you press any key, and then you add all of them up. You're probably gonna be looking like, maybe like 2 or 3 seconds on a boss fight. 2 or 3 seconds on a boss fight means one more aim shot, or one more scatter shot, or one more binding shot, one more steady shot, one more arcane shot. Whatever kind of context you want to give it, it's going to be one more. So it's going to be a big chunk to your DPS in the long run, and I'm going to be guessing it's going to be more than 1 MS for you to lift your finger up. So in this case, it means that as soon as it's registered, you push the key down, it will send the information. So that's what you want it to be set up. So turn this on. The next one is lag tolerance. So lag tolerance is also, same add-on, but lag tolerance within this add-on. So this is really important, where essentially there is an amount of lag tolerance. So what I'll do is I'll show you what it's like at 400 MS real quick. So if I target this dummy and I start casting steady shot, I can when I finish casting, I normally would push it, get another button again. So if you notice, I can push this early. So I'm pushing now, and it doesn't go. Okay, and I push now, and it goes again. So here is where it will pick up the next key. What this means is that if you have any amount of lag, you aren't going to. The tolerance will mean that it's just going to ignore it and start sending the next signal to Blizzard. But the problem with this is that you'll have an amount of lag within it. So whenever you have any MS, that is what you would class as lag. So at the moment I've got 52 world and 26 home. So when I go to cast an ability, there'll be a delay. So there's always a delay from me, so how fast I can push a key, and then a delay from my computer to the server. And so that's the delay that you're really playing with. So if you have it too large of a number, like the 400 I've just set it to, it will mean that Blizzard, there'll be a big chunk of time, so 400 MS. So roughly my what MS I've got, so 52, take away from 450, so 350 for every spell that I try to use will be taken away. So it will add up really fast over time. So this is why you can see like massive increases in DPS and reduction. So what you want to do is have it on the highest end of your MS for your lag tolerance. So for instance, so right now mine says 41. That might not actually be the best number overall for you to be using, because it'll go up to 50 when you go into a raid, or it might go to 75 or whatever. So that's why you see mine at 75. Most of the time when I'm in a raid, somewhere around about 75 at the top end, and then it might jump from like 50 up to 75 and back down again. So you want to get the top end of whatever your MS is when you hover over this. So it'll change all the time. So there you go. The home is now 34 and the world is 41. So you can see it'll fluctuate, but you want to have the top end of whatever your MS is, and so that way that there won't be any difference between when the server receives the information and when you send it, or as small amount as possible, because essentially from when you send the data will be as early as you can do it, within reason obviously, and the lag tolerance is like when you push the ability. If you as a person are behind slightly, then it'll still send the information, which is one side. So let's say this is the left side. So that's the first chunk. So obviously, let me show you what it's like with it. So again, I can push here and it will cast. So it's like almost like 20%. All right. So that means that I could be losing that chunk at the end because it could have already sent the spell. So we go interface, combat, lag tolerance. Let's just check it down. What are we looking at the moment so we can get the best test for it? 41. So we will go just above 41. So 51, that should be about fine. Right, return to game. So do the same thing. I'm pushing it now. Didn't work. Okay, pushing it now. Okay, it works. So do you see where it's lining up? It's actually lining up on this red chunk on this bar, which actually goes into my next thing I'm going to talk to you about, which is Quartz. So this is another add-on that I'll recommend. I think that in AlvUI there might be like another thing that's by default added in, but it's called Quartz. I think they might use Quartz in AlvUI, but you can edit how it looks and everything like that if you want it to. You can all of that's in here, whatever. But what we are interested in it for is this bit here that says latency. So within this bar, when you cast, it will chuck your latency number. So this number here will be what you'll see here but within this time that it actually goes to send the information. See 116, 49. So it'll go up, fluctuating up and down. Do you see where I'm saying to you the numbers go up and down every now and then? So you should get like, it's when you start casting, it records it. So it's not 100% foolproof on that sense, but it gives you a rough estimate of what you should be looking for. So what this will do is you can, let's say, so what we're going to do is I'm going to cast a steady shot, and then when I get to the red bar, I'm going to use arcane shot. And so what this is going to do is arcane shot is going to, so steady shot gets sent to the server. The server says, yes, I can see you're casting steady shot. That's going to take you this amount of time based on the information we have on your gear and whatever, right? Then when you go to push arcane shot, steady shot is still technically casting on your screen, but by the time arcane shot, the message that you send for arcane shot reaches the server, it could have sent. So on Blizzard's screen, you've pushed it at the perfect time or as close to. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to be, so you're casting steady shot, and then just towards the end, if you're spamming it, you can do it. So the other way of testing this and showing what it's like is to use a casted spell. So I do aim shot. So just as I get to the end, I'm going to start moving, and you'll see. So just before it didn't work. All right. So if I get just to the end, aim shot went off, but I moved before it finished. So I do it again. This has got a better one. Right. So I was too early. And there you go. I was just on time. So you can see like how close it is and how much like lag tolerance you need. Like I have like quite decent MS most of the time. This seems really high for me at the moment, 70 for some reason. Maybe it's because I'm in Stormwind right now. But that's where you're looking for. So you want to itch out this little bit of DPS. But these two concepts like marry together really well. Obviously you've got your lag and then the lag between your computer and the server, and those two are the left and right sides of this lag problem. And the other thing that you need to so these two things like work really well together, but the strategy for it isn't what I've just explained. The strategy for you to do is for you to repeatedly push increments to the server so that whenever your lag is up and you've got space to so the server thinks that you aren't casting anything, that's when you want to send the data. So what you'll do is whenever you're casting any normal casted spell, start spamming towards the end of it your like instant cast spell, or then if you're going to be using the same spell twice, you could start spamming it before the end, and normally that will mean that the server would already have started sending the ability. If your lag tolerance is set too high in advanced interface options, then it won't trigger it and you won't get the extra DPS. And also if you're not paying attention to the bar on Quartz, it won't be close enough, and then you're going to lose some DPS. So this is how you can gain quite a decent amount of DPS just off the offset from just 2 add-ons that you can set up pretty quick. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is Warcraft Logs. So this is like out of game, but it's pretty significant. So normally, like if you're in a raid guild, you're gonna have somebody else be sorting this for you. Like it's normally officers will sort it. So they will install. There's an add-on and everything like that. I'm not going to go over it. Essentially, you can just go to warcraftlogs.com/help/start, and that will guide you through how to set everything up. But essentially, once you've gone into a raid and you've completed a raid or done any boss, or even had an attempt at a boss, if somebody's logging it and they're pushing it out to Warcraft Logs, it will appear here. So you can search for your name, so sometimes, like in raid guilds, people don't tell people that they're recording their logs, but you don't have any option to. If somebody else is in your raid, they can record your logs. And so you search for yourself, whatever. So here's my 2 most recent runs on heroic progression we did. We actually did all 4 of these bosses, but and I think we did Artificer as well, but the logs aren't there for whatever reason. I don't know. Occasionally there can be some weird issues, but that's not the important part. So yeah, so you come in here and you search for yourself. And so you use this information to actually build out what you're going to do. So you can compare yourself. So this is me, but I've taken my Hunger and Destroyer logs. Oh, this bugged again. Don't know why. Normally, so it should come straight into this page here. Okay, so you can see in my logs, I have this dip here. So I actually know what this is. But if you here's some Russian hunter that's has similar eye level as me, but he beat me on DPS by quite a bit. So it's like, right, okay, what difference is there? So we can see there's like a difference in like arcane shots here, and I think this is auto shot. He's got trinkets that are worth 3% his DPS. I haven't got those trinkets, so I don't get that. I used a different potion to him, so his shadow core oil, it does slightly less than mine, kind of thing, 1.29 and 1.01, that sort of thing. So small things there, but the main thing is you can see that he doesn't have this drop in DPS. And I went back through, and a lot of the time I'll record videos of what I'm doing, but in this instance I didn't. But this chunk here is actually me using Aspect of the Turtle to eat the orbs on Hunger and Devour. So me basically trying to stop us from wiping from so many orbs. So this is just almost like a normal thing. Like occasionally I'll do stuff like this. It depends on the boss, but this is to help the raid. So this is why I've got this giant chunk and everything drops off, because it's basically says 0 DPS there. Yeah, so that's why. So I've dropped all my DPS. And there's other stuff like I've got more aim shot damage than that guy has, and less arcane damage, and some of that's to do with like what I've taken for shadow core oil and whatever else. So it's just like slight differences, but I can see some places I can improve. I could be looking to get more steady shots in, and I should be using the steady shot twice in a row more, but it's because I'm not used to that talent and stuff like that. It's only actually become more viable for me recently. But you can see this sort of stuff. But now, when you've got this information, this builds out to be like quite a lot of information to give you, and so but it's hard to understand what the best thing to do is. So what I'm going to recommend is after you've managed to get somebody in your guild to do this, or you've set up these logs yourself, what you're going to do is I'm going to use my guild's tank for example for this. So this is my guild's tank, and we did this is the same fight, I think, Hungering Devourer, and it's just going to go through like he's like a tank, so it doesn't matter so much, but he's like got low damage, but it's easy to see when you're a tank, like what stuff you could miss on like DPS afterwards when you come to something like this, because tanks always got to manage between the two of not dying and doing damage, and so but it's sometimes hard to see where you can do more damage. But this is why I'm using this as an example, but it works the same, and I've got an example for DPS as well. So here's wowanalyzer.com. So to get here, all you've got to do is you go to wowanalyzer.com and you copy this Warcraft Logs where it says your name here. So all of that URL, and you copy that, and you come to the website and it says put in your warcraftlogs.com URL. You paste it in there and it just takes you straight to the page I was just on. So we've got Hunger and Destroy is the one we was using an example. Okay, so it gives you an overview and it'll tell you statistics, timeline, stagger, whatever, right? So I'll go through these, but it tells you, it gives you a checklist of what you've done and what you could do better. It gives you suggestions. So it's stuff like try to blackout kick more often. And it's like you did 44 out of 84 possible casts. So they've measured every cast you did and seen where you've missed something and you could have done something. So you getting the perfect number of casts in a fight is going to be almost impossible. So it shouldn't be expected, but sometimes they'll give you percentages too. So here you go, 58% of hits mitigated with Breath of Fire, but 70% is recommended. So it's like use Breath of Fire more. And 42% of casts while better spells were available for Tiger Palm. So there can be reasons why you would use Tiger Palm. There's benefits, you can read through this. Might be the case you wanted your bruise off cooldown, so you was like prioritizing it for that because there's a mechanic. So sometimes this doesn't get everything perfectly, but it does give you a good idea of like, if your raid was lacking DPS and you weren't dying, then as a tank you've got all of this to look through. Here you go. So like, did you use Touch of Death? No, there was no Touch of Death used, but well, you could have killed a mob pretty much instantly using Touch of Death on one of the smaller mobs on a different fight. But Hunger and Devour, you're fighting for the last little bit, but it's something to think about. Blackout kick again, like I said, 51% or whatever for the DPS rotation. So it's like, are you doing the correct DPS rotation as a tank? Most people don't even think about it. They just like, have I got threat and am I alive? But after you've perfected those things and you're doing really well at them, that's when you can start to look at some of this stuff. It recommends stuff like this as well. So it says avoid casting Purifying Brew less than Heavy Stagger. So it's like little bits like this. So when you look for your DPS, it's the same. So this is just tank DPS. So even though this is for DPS, this is for anyone. Even healers could look at this and go, right, well, I could squeeze out some more damage or more healing. And what I'm going to go into now is this, which is Death Knight from our guild. So this is the death recap. So I'll go back actually and look at some of the statistic. No, hang on a minute. Overview. So DPS is the same. It will say stuff like 5 out of 9 possible casts of Unholy Blight, which is an AoE damage spell. So it might have been the case that it was on low damage fight. I think this was off Sun King. So there's tons of AoE, so definitely should have been used. Apocalypse could have been used more often. 4 out of 6 possible casts. So it's a 1.5 minute cooldown. So it can see where you don't use it. Whatever. So it might have been the case that you saved it for a little bit, but then you would have only have had one that was off, because there would have been some time there for you to use the other one. And it's similar with Swarming Mists or Voracious Hunger. There's loads of them. And also it tell you stuff about why you've died, where you was dead. So you were dead for 18% of the fight. 0% is recommended, obviously. But it'll let you go to this and you can click Death Recap. So it's like awesome stuff, right? So Death Recap is great. So it will tell you what personal cooldowns you had available while you died. So you can go, shit, I wasn't using Icebound Fortitude. Shit, I didn't use Death Pact, and that gives me 50% of my HP. I didn't use Anti-Magic Shout. Well, how much did I die by? Well, I died by 16k. So if I'd have used Anti-Magic Shout, I'd have lived. Just Anti-Magic Shout, you would have lived. But you could have used Death Pact, and you could have been at 50% HP, at least. Because I think it's like 30% plus versatility. Assuming he's got some versatility, but also got Anti-Magic Zone. So some of the damage on this you could have, like, you can Anti-Magic Zone one of the Phoenix fires or whatever, or something like that, like one of the AoE, big AoE damage things that gets chucked down in the Phoenix mode, and that would have made you live. But it looks like some of this was Crimson Flurry, so this is just the assassins jump on you and then they leave a dot, and so he's taking tick damage. So this is, you could say this is like a bit of a healer issue. Standing near the Vanquisher, probably not the best idea. Wait, no, this is the one, the AoE one, right? It's not the front attack. Yeah, 6k AoE. Okay, so yeah, that was fair. But like a lot of this like healing save like bits that he had was leech, and you can see how long he went without it. So you could go to the healer and go, or whoever looks after your healing in your raid and go, look, there's 7 seconds without him getting healed. So we should look to sort that. But also you can go to him and go, right, you had 30% damage reduction up and you didn't pop it. And you was taking a lot of damage from Crimson Fury, and you also didn't use your Death Pact here. So we could look to improve. So he could have been alive for the last bit of the fight. Maybe you wiped just before, and it's like, oh fuck, we think it's like. But normally, what I wouldn't get it on people's case. I would just be like, can you check over what you did for this fight? 'Cause, I could see you could improve, and I just want you to remember the stuff that you have got, because it's not like he hasn't used Sacrificial Pact here to get some a half back, right? So he is thinking about some of it, but not all of it, or maybe he's not bound or something like that, just little things. So this is, as a guild leader or an officer or something like that, you can go to somebody and get this stuff looked at, but it's a separate thing again. But also you've got timeline. So this is another good one where it can go specifically and look at where you miss something. So you can see here he uses anti-magic zone. So he's helping the raid. You can see he's using Mind Freeze here, which is good. And he's using Death Cool while he's running, which is really good. A lot of players don't do this. I recommend doing this. And you'll get to a point somewhere where you'll have... It might be easier to look at it on the tank. I can't remember if there is something where it'll show up. Normally there'll be like a chunk where it'll show in red if you fuck up or don't push something when you could have. No, right, hang on. Let me go back. Timeline. Here. The following better spells were available during this global cooldown. Blackout Kick. So something as small as that, but it's like, it'll tell you every time. Tiger Palm, Tiger Palm, Tiger Palm. Here, there was you delayed casting Purifying Brew for 0.95 seconds after being hit, allowing Stagger to tick down. So you took more damage because of it, because the next hit was after this, so you should have used it bang on when you took when you got hit. That's basically the tip for anyone that plays Brewmaster. You use it as soon as you get smashed. But obviously this is like everything, like you can watch stagger management here, little bits of that, and they're tailored for different things. So essentially, like WoW Analyzer can actually sort out all of your rotation for you in a way, or at least tell you what you should be prioritizing. Most people have like a priority based cooldown system nowadays and whatnot, but you've got like these big chunks. So here's a massive chunk where you could have used this Soul Reaper, and then I bet you there's another one somewhere as well. Like when they chain one after another, you know that something's good's going on. But when they don't, you can just be worried, I guess. Let me see if we can see one chained. There, this is chained. Okay, so Army of the Dead was chained the first go, and then the second go, I think it doesn't get changed, or like it doesn't get used. Maybe, I don't know. But you can see my point. Like you can look through this and go, right, okay, I can see he's using the haste here, so he's getting haste through these abilities at this point in the fight, and this is where the extra damage came in on this bit, and you can use this to go back and check your logs and go, right, this is because I used haste. Yeah, they kind of work together. So you can go, right, this damage spike here was because I used haste, and this bit didn't go as high because I didn't use the haste buff or whatever. Hopefully that makes some sense with how to work out your. So you take your Warcraft Logs name here, and then you paste it in on this, and then you get to look at what's happening with your character. You've got a breakdown of what to try to do more often. Where you should be trying to do stuff. For instance, like there's bits like there's another good bit here actually. So it will tell you, like it will remind you this. So your downtime can be improved. Try to always be casting, reducing time away from the boss unless due to mechanics. If you do have to move, try casting filler spells such as Death Call or Outbreak. So this is like one of those ones where you've got to run and you're like, all right, I'm going to save my instant cast spells, so I'm going to keep Runic Power because I know I'm going to have to run soon. So, like, for instance, on this fight that we're looking at, the Sun King, when you get into Phoenix mode, when you've got to chase a boss around the room like a crazy person, so everyone's stacking on the back of the boss, you want to keep your runic power just before that phase so that you can use it on Death Coil while you're having to move out of the fire. So that's when your globals are you can use it on Death Coil unless you're in melee range. Like if you're in melee range, you're going to keep your melee rotation, but you get the point. Like if you have to move out of the way because the Phoenix is too close to you, you're going to do it. You can use the Death Coil or Outbreak or whatever. But this is the idea. You're going to look to focus these, and it works better when you're looking at somebody like a mage and they got to use Ice Lance in the little bits of cooldown, like in the bits of time where they need to move and they can't cast Frostbolt or something like that. Or for instance, when I'm playing my hunter, it's like, I'm going to use Steady Shot in that gap. And so you try to keep your downtime high to be less than 10% is recommended. That's a pretty good number. Like, nobody's perfect. This might seem like really high, but there is bits of downtime in the fight. Sometimes it will say that it's taken into account, and other times it doesn't. So you need to be clued in and just read through all of it. Because of the way this counter was designed, some statistics suggest maybe inaccurate. So maybe he actually has way better. So you can't take it word for word, but you can go, I could have got more cast out of Soul Reaper potentially, so I need to think about that in my next go. And then there's some bosses where there's always DPS chances to go through, and then you can actually get more out, and so 100% you can get more out, and you've got to look for those. Okay, so the next few I've got are smaller DPS increases, but they're definitely something that everyone should be thinking about, and it's like to do with pre-casting in the openers. So I will say it now, do not pre-pot in a sense of using the pot before we pull aggro. You don't need to. If you do it, it doesn't make it better or worse. It's not something you need to pre-pot before you start combat anymore. It doesn't work. So just after that disclaimer's out of the way, just in case somebody's been doing that, essentially what I'm going to be advising is for you to look to pre-cast abilities before you engage in the fight with a boss. So for instance, I'm not when the aggro starts, I don't push misdirection. I push it. I've got 30 seconds, so I push it way before. Double tap lasts for 15 seconds. The buff does. So I use double tap like 10 seconds before the pull timer's finished. So it says 10, 9. All right, I'm double tapping. All right, I get closer. All right, so I want to have an aim shot in the air as I'm pulling, or I want resonating arrow flying in the air. It's an instant cast, but flying in the air towards like a group of mobs or whatever, or towards the boss as it says 1. So it's like when it says 1, I've pushed resonating arrow. It's flying for the air, and then so technically you're meant to not pull on 1, you're meant to go on 0 or whatever, but it's flying in the air. I've got misdirection up, so I already know that I'm going to be sending my threat towards the tank or wherever it is I'm supposed to, so it doesn't matter for me. Maybe you need to hold back because you're going to pull aggro, so try to avoid that. Maybe even if, let's say you're a priest, use feint in the opener. Just use feint before you do anything, and then go through all the rest of your cooldowns. Assuming it still removes fair, I can't remember. But you get the idea. You're going to try to preemptively think about this stuff beforehand. So you're going to, as a rogue, you're going to trick to the trade before you even start the fight. And then so on 2, you're going to use your movement ability to get next to the tank or something like that. Or even you're going to wait until it says 1, use your movement ability on 1, and then engage. Because you're going to send your threat anyway. So it wouldn't matter that you jumped straight in, as long as you push the button before the boss attacks you so that he sends his threat to the tank. But, that's a separate thing. You don't want to get one shot. So you've got to be careful. So you might need to practice this. And the easiest way to practice it would be in mythics and stuff like that, or in heroic dungeons or whatever, to practice like aiming to get the first hit in. So it's not like specifically has to be the first hit, but the earlier you fight and you start doing damage, the more damage you're going to do to that boss overall, and the less healing that needs to be worried about. So sometimes some tanks and I've done mythics with have moaned about it, or I've done like raids and people have moaned about it. It's like, oh, you're pulling too early or whatever. I haven't got a chance to get aggro and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, you need to work on your aggro, but I send aggro to you. So it's not actually a problem for me. It might be somebody else that's doing it. But if we don't look to get the most out, if we run out of mana, then that's actually on the DPS for not doing enough DPS to kill it fast enough, which would in turn mean that it's a problem there. So you've got to think about this and you've got to look through it. So you're looking to pre-cast everything. So I'll be popping, and some things you can use at the same time because they don't have a cooldown. So it'd be stuff like I'm using I'll use double tap like 10 seconds before when I get down to like 3 or 2 or something like that. I'm using like True Shot. I'm using my potion. I'm using Resonating Arrow. I'm using my trinket. We're now into the last second or whatever. Resonating Arrow is flying through the air on the 1 second. It's the last button I push. Then my aim shot's going is already in. I've already started casting it, so I'm already using that lag tolerance thing that I've said before. So Resonating Arrow is in the air during the global cooldown. I've already started casting my aim shot, and my aim shot is going through, and just after the beginning I shoot straight to the top of the DPS, and it happens every time. That will apply Super Sting, and we'll go through the rest of the normal fight. I'll be doing my normal rotation, but this is something you need to think about. It's like, so you have your pre stuff, like, calling your steward, making sure you've used your battle shout, whatever, those sort of things. Make sure you picked up your healthstone, whatever. Make sure you've got your flasks and your food, those bits and pieces, and then you've got pre-fight. And pre-fight is just as important as most other parts of the fight. The only time that I would say you don't pop all your cooldowns right at the beginning of the fight is if you use heroism in like 10 seconds or 20 seconds or something like that. Like within the first minute, if you're going to use heroism, then save them. But if you've got 45-second cooldowns, then use those 45-second cooldowns. I haven't got any. I've only got 1 minute. But like, let's say it was 1 minute 30. I would use the 1 minute cooldowns in the opener, and then they would be ready in 1 minute 30 for me to use them on the heroism. So you've got to think about when you can do it. And some of that's practice in the raid, and sometimes it's watching somebody else do the raid and see how often like they get stuff, what their DPS looks like and stuff like that. So you've got to like pay attention to like DPS numbers on the chart and stuff like that. Like maybe we don't get as close to them, so you messed up the first couple goes. But after the first couple goes, you should be able to get it pretty smoothly, like getting out your rotation. Most bosses now, you should be able to get like 5 minute, like 5 minutes or something like that, 6 minutes, depending on the boss. So you should be able to get 6 1 minute cooldowns out, like ish. Maybe one less depending if it's just right at the end, but you get the idea. Because you're going to use them just before, so you should be able to get, like, you push the button maybe, and then the boss dies or the mop dies, and that's fine. But you've got to think about these things. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is 2 macros. So the first one is start attack macro. So basically there's a bug in the game, and it's existed for pretty much the whole time, where when you swap mobs, occasionally start attack doesn't kick in, and it will cause you issues. And even when you even though the mobs died, sometimes start attack doesn't kick in because it's still trying to attack the old mob because it doesn't switch off properly. So the way around it is for you to make a macro. So all you have to do is so I've tied it into my aim shot. You can put it into everything. It's better when you're melee to do that. And for me, I'll push aim shot all the time, and that's when I first open on something, I'll push aim shot, and it's my highest DPS as well. And I also send a pet in if I'm using one as well, so it ties itself together. But so all you've got to put is /start attack, and so for anyone that does auto attack, so hunter and all melee classes will need to do it. There's no range, don't need to worry about it, but everyone that does auto attacks, if you're playing as a holy paladin and you're stood next to the boss and you're auto attacking it, you need to make sure you have this on whatever key it is you push when you start doing melee damage. It's really important. This is going to add on those small bits of MS, and all of this stuff that I'm talking about is small parts of, like, either it's a delay from you as a human, or it's a delay from you to the server, or it's a delay from your computer, or it's a delay on your keyboard, and you're trying to remove those little bits to add up to being, hundreds of DPS, because all of this adds up in total. Like, it might be like gives you 5 seconds to give you another cooldown to use, and then it adds up. So yeah, I want you to think about this. And the other one is at cursor macro. So for instance, like, so think of like volley. Okay, so when I go to use volley normally, let's just get it out of my spell book so you can see. I would push the key, and then I'd move to where I want it to go. So I like push the key, so I push A, and then it gives me its targeting reticle, and then I have to move where I want it to go, and then I click it, right? Well, my brain normally knows where it wants it to go without needing to aim it, right? I know how big it is because I've used it before. And even if I don't really know exactly how big it is, I can go, right, well, this will get, this is the center of the most mobs that I could hit. So I'm just going to aim for this. Boof. And I'll click it. Okay? So I want you to think about this. So what /cast at cursor does is, instead of having a targeting reticle, it will automatically do it. So if I push Q now on for resonating arrow, it will just fire it instantly to the middle of wherever my cursor is. So if I put my cursor over here and I push Control and V, it will send out explosive trap there. If I push Z here, it will put my flare there. So you can understand where I'm going with this. Like these, they'll automatically fire out, and that's what we're looking for. Like, so there is no delay between where you want to do it and like when it's getting sent out. So if as soon as you want to push the button, you want to do it. So you would want to use this on like Rain of Fire, or you would want to use this on Blizzard. Any form of targeting reticle ability, you would want to do it. Even something as small as like you're playing Mistweaver and you need to put your stuff down, or you're playing a Shaman, you want to chuck a totem down. If it's a position placed totem, you just want to have it so you push the key once and it will send it to wherever your mouse is. And then all you got to do is adapt that little bit. Take you like 5 minutes to like just aim where you want it to go and then push the button, and then it just drops out. And it will add on. This is like the main key part. I'm gonna like go through the whole video. It's like you're taking small amounts of time that you've like there's some delay in there for some reason, and we're trying to remove it. You don't have to be a better player. Like there's obvious stuff that everyone always knows, which is like did you read the guide on your rotation from like the best players? Like, have you got the Discord open for your class just in case there's some changes that affect how you should play? Do you know what the best off stats are? Like, have you got the best in slot gear? Like all this stuff you can like just Google. That's easy stuff. This is the stuff that nobody really talks about, which is like to do with like internet delay, human delay, keyboard delay, stuff like that. So I'm trying to remove all that. For instance, I will recommend you now is look at where you've bound your keys. Like wherever you have a Naga style mouse is important as well, but just look at where you've bound your keys and say, have I got the highest DPS keys closest to my fingers, that I can push them easily without having to take my fingers off movement unless it's a casted spell. Because if you don't, then we could say that's bad. Like, for instance, I don't move with WASD, so I can get more keys in round, and I can still ring. I use ST and F to move, so D moves me forward. I've unbound move backwards, and because you don't want to actually ever do that, because you'll move slower, and if you move slower to the target, that means you'll do less DPS. So, or if you move away slower, you're more likely to get hit by AoE, which means more healing needs to be done, or you die. None of that's any good. So don't do that. Also, don't turn. I don't have Q and E for turn or whatever. I use S to strafe left and F to strafe right. Like, it's a really weird key setup, but I can recommend it. It'd take you a while to get used to it, but once you're in there, it's like 10,000 times better. You can still reach shift and control. As I said, I've used control and shift key binds already. And then I've bound like Q, W, E, R, T. They've got all these like really close keys, close buttons to use. And it means that those are my main keys, and then I use my Naga style mouse to do my main DPS cooldown. So I don't actually push the right bracket and the left bracket. That's actually just bound to the mouse. P is bound to the mouse. K, all of the K is bound to the mouse. All these weird ones, I, O, obviously they're bound to a mouse, and I ain't reaching all the way over there always. This is what I would say to you to think about doing. Is like having this sort of mouse, so I can play mostly one-handed, because most of my normal rotation is on my right hand, which means I can focus moving with my left hand. It's only really casted stuff I put on outside of here, or if it's a cooldown, so I only need to push it once, so it's not repeatedly over and over and over again. And normally I'll push that cooldown while I'm jumping or something like that, because it's instant. So I'll only take my fingers off if it's not instant, and that'll be stuff like, oh, I'm using Scare Beast, but even then that's turned off. You can't see it, like, so it's like, I think it's like 70% opacity, because I don't need it most of the time. I only have it like this because I'll drag these in and out all the time, but I've got bars here you can't see at all, and this is just stuff I like where I've like kept it from PvP or for a specific macro. And there's a bars here for arena that I just turned off entirely because I want it to be really clean. Like, there's, apart from weak cores that appear on the screen when I'm raiding, everything's got to be clean, because I want this whole area to be used for my peripheral vision to pick up stuff. So I leave the minimap on. Sometimes I think I don't want it, but occasionally it will come in useful for like a raid scenario where I can't see somebody on the map, and I just notice the color and I can then look towards that direction. So I can't see behind me. I don't do this every 2 seconds, but that's the main reason why I've left the minimap open. I'm not very good at doing it, but occasionally it's worked. And then the main one is I want to see, can I see over here, like to my left and to my right? What can I see? And I'll do a lot of movement with just both my mouse keys down to make it smoother for me, and then strafing obviously on top of that. And then this is like the layers of work on cooldowns. Like, how big have I got my icons? The only thing I think isn't, these two are the only ones that don't actually have a cooldown, and that's because the buttons are there by default because of how I've built my UI, and I didn't need the extra slots. But you can see how I've like thought through my UI. So this is all of my defensives, this is my CC and movement, and this is my damage, like, and these are set up like this so that if I'm thinking, when's my next damage cooldown off, boof, look here, when's my healing off, boof. So I'm looking less where I need to go. My weak auras and stuff are like here. My DBN comes under my cast bar, so it's just like here. So it's only in this area really that anything gets lit up, and all of this is for everything else. And this bit up here where that warrior is, that's actually just for me to focus on it. And this as well, I put so I can see everyone's DPS cooldowns above their head whenever they're doing anything, so I can know like what this is for, like arena and stuff, but it works the same. DPS is always the same, and it works for PvE too, so I can see that you use avatar there, so I can know they use this cooldowns. So when everyone thinks they're getting away with like DPS and like raid and stuff or whatever, and they're not using their cooldowns, I can see it anyway. So I'm always surprised when some people will say, I've used a XYZ thing, when I can tell they haven't. And obviously you can see I can look in your logs too. But that's it for me, boys. For my guild that I said I'd make the video for. If you just have any questions, just send through in guild chat or whatever, or if you've got any, you can put them in the YouTube video comments. And if you've got any tips as well for me to increase my damage, just send it my way, and I'll be happy to add it to a new video or whatever. And I definitely want the extra damage, so yeah, send it my way. Cheers, boys. Bye.